just wanted to say I listened to the song and it's perfect.
And so I played it for me and Steve, and I was bawling.
All the memories that we had from way back when he was little. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe this.
This song seriously touched my heart in a way nothing else could. It's really become my daily reminder, kind of like a pick-me-up when I'm feeling weak, and really my encouragement.
Not only did she cry, but I might have shed a tear or two, and I really don't have words to put into what that song has meant to us over the years.
Hey, I'm John, one of the co-founders of Songfinch, the company that helped bring these beautiful memories to life. When I was 5 years old, I heard the Chicago Bears Super Bowl shuffle for the first time and instantly fell in love with music. As I grew older, I continued pursuing my passion and have been building and operating companies in the music space for the last 20 years. A few years back, my brother asked me to be the best man in his wedding, so I knew I had to do something cool and creative. At the time, we were working together licensing music for commercials, and I got this idea to get one of his favorite bands to write and record a song about how him and his wife met, some cool inside jokes, things about the family. So the day comes, I'm super nervous to give the speech. I give a speech and then I tell the DJ to hit play. People are laughing, people are crying, just a room full of emotion. To this day, when I see people in the family, they're still asking me about that song, Rob and Jane.
After the wedding, I knew I was onto something really special. Fast forward a decade later, and Songfinch has helped hundreds of thousands of people celebrate their relationships and express their love in an unforgettable way.
That's the most thoughtful present I've ever had in my whole entire life.
We've created a process that's equally easy and engaging. Answer some questions about who the song is for, select your genre, and we'll match you with a talented artist from our curated roster of over 1,200 musicians. In 4 to 7 days, you get to experience the magic of a completely original song created just for you. There's no better time to tell them how you feel than right now. Head to our website and create a moment you'll never forget with a gift that goes beyond words. Start your original song today.
Yay. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks, John.
You.
So the video talked a little bit about the origin story, how you got started. Can we dig in a little more on when you knew you had something and the early steps you took to test it out, to see what was really there, and was it worth starting a company to build it?
Sure. So yeah, we started the company at the end of 2016. So we're talking 8 years later. I think it's kind of touches on perseverance, because the first 4 years of the company, we're talking about 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, like we're trying to stand up a whole new business vertical, right? Like personalized music. No one's ever really heard about it. It doesn't really make sense. And when you're trying to do that, you're trying to educate consumers, you're trying to build a model that's scalable, you're trying to understand like how big is the space, how big is this idea. And I think there was no real traction for the first 4 years. We're talking like $150,000 in revenue a year, and with the ambitions that we had with it, that wasn't really like it wasn't enough for us. So throughout those first 4 years, we probably should have quit, I don't know, 12 times over. But I think it was the output, the output that like made us say like, there's something here. We haven't figured out how to communicate it properly. It was never like the business needs to pivot, but we definitely had questions like, how big is the space? Is this for, like music nerds that only buy vinyl box sets? Or is it like an actual potential venture-backed company with like a gigantic audience? And we even questioned that like through the first 4 years of not getting traction. And then really when we were going to quit, it's January 2020. We're in love with the output. We're just not creating enough songs. We're not making enough of those connections, right? And we had some other businesses and some things going on at the time. So it was like, all right, we had $30,000 after raising $1 million in 2017. We had 30 grand left. And it was like, we're gonna drop this last 30,000 on like a Facebook ad. We're gonna go to zero. We're going to go through the process of closing up the business. We feel like we gave it our all. So it wasn't like we were quitting, but not really. And that's when the epiphany happened, right? That's when we're like, hey, maybe we've been looking at this wrong the whole time. Maybe as music people who have been in the music industry for so long, it's not, music is just the vehicle that's delivering our offering, right? Really what we're doing is we're creating these emotive moments. We're not selling personalized music. And I think that shift in positioning kind of unlocked everything. And then we took that concept and took that idea and launched like a singular Facebook ad with that last set of money and ended up doing, almost 2x in a single 7-day period than we did the whole previous year combined. So it was that moment like, oh shit, this can actually work. It was a horrible week in regards to we didn't have any staff. We were planning on like packing our bags and being done. And now it's like, oh, we have all of these orders and all of this traction and people get it now. And then from there, it was kind of like this crazy rocket ship of 2020, 21, 22, and beyond.
So how many of you in the audience imagine yourselves as small business owners someday, as entrepreneurs? Maybe it's something you might like to pursue, a few of you.
If you're musicians too, like
yeah, right. If you're a musician,
right?
You're an entrepreneur, whether you're willing to acknowledge it or not. So one of the things that comes through is, the success now for Songfinch is incredible. Like #1 fastest growing consumer brand in the U.S. last year, number 11 of any companies of any type. 24,000% growth?
24,000% 3 year.
Ridiculous. But we see that, right? But what that masks is the slog and the perseverance and the struggle and the near-death experiences. Yeah,
I mean, like, it's painful to not have sales and not have traction, but it's a different kind of pain, one that I'm never going to complain about, but it's a different kind of pain too with 24,000% growth, meaning like you're making decisions and you're taking action to make sure that the walls and the ceiling essentially don't cave in on you during that time. So it presents a whole new set of challenges. Again, challenges that I'll never complain about, and I'll always like encourage to have to deal with those challenges, but still challenges in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, we will be taking questions. You can ask questions in the app now. It's live. They'll get pushed to us. We'll definitely try to get to them all. As a inducement, as getting to know John, I'm definitely going to be a customer. And not only that, if there's some really good questions, I'll buy a Songfinch song for some of you that ask good questions. So
there we go.
Ask away.
There's a bunch of sales in this room. Let's make it happen.
So talk about, can we like go way back?
Yep.
I think being an entrepreneur is a personality type, is a certain mindset.
It's a sickness.
It's a sickness. It absolutely is a disease. So when did you know you were sick?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, in high school, I was, I grew up like 30 miles outside of Chicago. So I'm a suburban kid and I was just super into music. I'm 44 now, so I'm a child of like 90s hip hop. So back then, every Tuesday, that was music release day.
Yeah.
And I would constantly ditch school on Tuesdays, take the train to the city, dig through the crates, bring back new vinyl, bring back new CDs, bring back new music, and kind of introduce that new music to, the suburb culture. And I think from there, I think, I worked a bunch of odd jobs in high school and immediately after high school, but I don't think I'm a very employable person, to be completely honest. So I don't know, like some people are just builders. Some people are just, again, I said a sickness, but like addicted to progress and creation. And I think like once you unlock that, there's no real going back from it. Like once you get a taste of that, you're like, this is me, this is part of who I am. So kind of just going from there. So again, from introducing new records and DJing in high school to just being a sponge of information. Back in the 90s, we didn't have YouTube, so I couldn't just like do a search and figure out how to like run new equipment and things like that. So started recording, kind of self-taught recording engineer, started a record label, started managing artists, was an artist myself, just kind of tried it all. I think that's like a key to being an employee or being an entrepreneur. It's this idea of like this need for knowledge and this need to like better yourself and move yourself forward. I always tell people in our business, try to like, from a personal growth standpoint, try to keep up with the growth standpoint of the organization. And from that point of view, you can always become, you can always be important to where it is that we're going, right?
Yeah. Well, so thinking about applying that for all of us, you're touching on like the curiosity and the thirst for information, and if you're not interested enough to dig in and want to know everything you possibly can, maybe that's not the right domain for you, right? But if you find yourself like, I can't get enough, I want to go down the rabbit hole and not come out, like maybe you should listen to yourself, and maybe that's something that maybe that's a domain where you might want to think about starting a company.
Yeah, for sure. I had a couple conversations earlier today, like during mentor sessions, and some questions came up about like, hey, I'm pursuing music. Does it make, and I'm from this smaller town, does it make sense for me to move to New York, to Los Angeles, to a city like Chicago? And I think that thought process can be literally applied to a ton of different things. My feedback to that is like, in your current city or your current environment, are you taking advantage of all of the resources? Have you grown out of that environment? Now you need to go and, you're a fish, do you need to go to a bigger bowl? Or are you just looking at like some lack of progress and lack of movement as grass is always greener? Like the reason why I can't make things happen is because of where I'm at. And I think if you really dive in and start looking at that and like totally maximize resource, I think that's the key to a lot of this. And then like, not to say like you couldn't have more success in the larger cities, but the flip side to that is you'll hear people in larger cities saying like, the city's too big, no one notices me. So it's kind of this mentality of like, it's really easy to create excuses. And it's really difficult to put in the work and kind of maximize what you have access to, and I think that's key.
Yeah, 100%. So in her introduction, Jackie mentioned this isn't your first startup. This is number 5. You said last night at dinner this was your biggest so far, and you've mostly been in music. You had one in Daily Fantasy Sports, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how those experiences prepared you for this? What you learn from the early attempts where you had some success, not quite what you're enjoying in Songfinch yet.
Success on paper.
Yeah.
Success in press, not necessarily success in bank accounts.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, look, the one thing that I apply daily to this new operation is like not having shiny object syndrome. And that like goes back to what I just said in regards to like maximizing resource. As a young entrepreneur, as a young entrepreneur that's unbelievably optimistic, every single opportunity sounded like a good idea. And I think today, like the best decisions within this current business are those decisions in which like you say no to things. And I think back, a young entrepreneur, default was yes. More seasoned entrepreneur, default is no. And you have to work your way into saying yes into things. So I think that's one of the big things and one of the big differences. And yes, this current business is the biggest business, but mostly the biggest business in ambition. I think, we're surface level, it's like, cool, you're creating these like birthday songs and songs for anniversaries. And I think when you really start to dive in and understand how some of these puzzle pieces fit together, I always tell everybody when they talk about how big the market is for what it is we do, I say that it's anybody with a soul, and I usually get like laughed at immediately. And then when they start thinking about it, usually when I get laughed at, it's by a VC, and I'm like, hey, you don't really fit into this group anyway. So, but then when you start thinking about it, you're like, man, these are these incredible emotive moments between like loved ones, and music being the most emotive form of communication since the beginning of time, right? Utilizing that as that vehicle to kind of make that yours. Like, who wouldn't want to be a part of that experience, right? Like, every single person, like, if I said, would you want a personalized song, maybe like 80% of you would be like, no. But it's like, if I tell you, would you want something to like make your mom cry happy tears and have this incredible moment that you probably haven't had with her since you gave her like a construction gift from like kindergarten or something, everyone would say yes. So, going into this world of kind of positioning, and I think like that's something else that I've learned from these previous companies in regards to, figuring out that why and figuring out how to communicate that why.
Well, it struck me you're talking about the emotional reaction, not the technology, not the process, not the nuts and bolts, but it's the how is it making your customer's life better? How are they reacting to it? And that's applicable to really any of us, pretty much. I mean, it happens to be true for your business, but you can apply the same filter for just about any, I think.
For sure. And then like we haven't even touched on the part that's applicable to the majority of the people in this room being like artists and musicians.
Yep.
Like, I believe what we're doing with this business is solving, or at least it's beginning to lay some foundation to solve this forever problem that exists in music that no other platform tends to solve. All these new cool platforms that are coming out in music are always like, new mechanisms, new ways to leverage your fan base. And I think it's such an uninformed like point of view, because we know that 99% of people that are creating music, they don't have a fan base. Their fans are like their friends and family and the people in their immediate circle, and they're begging for people to listen and engage in their music. I believe we began to solve that with this like very non-traditional two-sided marketplace that we've created in focusing on the experience that we're delivering. So, normally in a two-sided marketplace, right, you have the supply side, which in this world are the creators and the artists. They're driving the demand on the consumer side. In this marketplace, we created a demand for that emotive experience, not who creates it. And that may sound weird from an artist point of view, but actually it has now allowed us to only focus on talent on that supply side, right? So I don't care how many social followers you have as a Songfinch artist. I don't care about career accomplishments. Like, I want those things to happen for you as a creator, and I want to encourage those and figure out ways to help with those. But for us, it's how well can the creators take this third-person story and information and create it as if they lived it themselves, to the point when they deliver that music, it hits somebody in the chest and makes them feel a particular way, right? So if you think about building a marketplace in that manner in music, we have 1,200 artists that we've kind of like handpicked now and curated this roster down to 1,200 artists who do that like amazingly. But it's allowed people who basically had music as a pipe dream for so long. Most of these artists haven't generated tons of money in music. They're not stars. And it's allowed them to go from pipe dream to reality nearly overnight. I mean, we have artists on our platform, like during holiday periods, are making $20,000 plus a month creating music. And this is just with like a single offering right now, what we have. Yeah.
Good luck. What would it take to do that in a couple months on, say, TikTok or Spotify?
Yeah, so just to put this into comparison, I think it's important. So as an example, you said TikTok. TikTok, we're talking about this global platform that's like rooted in music with, I think it's 1.7 billion users now. The last bit of info I had, they paid somewhere around $200 million over the last 12 months to the music industry as a whole. 1.7 billion user platform. They paid $200 million to the music industry as a whole. Everyone in this room understands $200 million to the music industry as a whole. I don't know how many of those dollars are actually getting to artists' pockets. During that same period of time, Songfinch has paid those 1,200 artists on this platform $25 million. So over 10% of what TikTok has paid the music industry, we've paid, this small select group of artists. So, this idea of like impact and, at a small scale, like we're beginning to kind of carve out and build this foundation for like a real middle class of musician, a real middle class of creator. We're seeing how it goes, right? It's like the gap is so massive. You have, superstar and you have starving, and almost everything is starving. Like people are fighting for scraps. And to be able to create a platform that allows you to earn money in music without having a fan base, because that forever problem, right? It's like, I can't make money in music without fans, and I can't really build a fan base without money, so like, how is this going to work? And it's this kind of never-ending, like, race to the bottom kind of deal. So, yeah.
Well, so John asked the question about, are songs considered works for hire, owned fully by the purchaser? I think this speaks to how you're empowering artists and why, one of the reasons why it's important for people in this room to understand what you do.
Yeah, so the right structure of what it is that we do. A song is $200. A customer comes to the table, they get a perpetual usage license. So it's basically they can have that song. They can download it. They can stream it off of their like individualized song page that we deliver with the song. They just can't monetize it. So they can share it. They can get the word out. There's some big audiences for some of these songs. They can't monetize it. On the flip side, the artist owns everything. They own the master and the publishing. We have tons of artists on the platform that, they write their heart out on these songs and create these incredible new pieces of art. And a lot of times, like, those records will end up on their records. They'll be re-recorded and re-released in different ways. They'll, get tidbits through this writing process. As you can imagine, like, we have some artists that have written thousands of songs. Like, you're getting better through this process, and you're like landing on gems that you're getting inspired by these stories. So yeah, they like take pieces of those and put them in their songs and things of that sort. So, and then we just participate in that revenue transaction. And there's a whole bunch of things that we're exploring and looking at in regards to like future setups and royalty models and how some of these things are going to work. Co-owning of new songs from the customer side. So as you can imagine, like, maybe we get into another question, but.
Well, no, I think it's really interesting. The potential is really cool you think about like the fan as co-creator, and we look at like two-sided networks and what's happened in the internet. Music is the only space really where, SoundCloud tried, but the music is the only space really where there hasn't been a true co-creation platform.
Yep. Yeah, I think my philosophy on the future of music in 2016, and I think it's now like more believable as we're seeing a lot of things happen, was the future of music is about like active participation. Like I definitely envision a future within music in which like the creator and the consumer begin to feel more as one. Like there's these real blurred lines. That doesn't mean that the hard skills that people are learning as musicians are going to go away. Like all of that's still going to be really valuable. But this idea of participation, like we've seen it in so many other business verticals, it only makes sense within music. You know, like Instagram comes about and they introduce, improved technology on a phone and some filters, and now like people fancy themselves as photographers, and then now we're seeing video creators. And I think in music, there's always this fascination with the business itself and the idea of being a creator. So if more people can get involved in that, I think it leads to really cool, innovative things happening just with art in general.
Yeah. Wanted to switch gears a little bit. So, you talked about vision being maybe job number one of a founder and CEO of a startup. Maybe job number two is setting culture and hiring and who do you want on your team? For people that might be graduating in a couple weeks, starting jobs and internships, can you talk through a little bit about what you're looking for in people? Hard skills, soft skills, attitude. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about like entry level, early stage, like attitude's everything. I rather hire a person that is like the energy is infectious, and they don't have any experience, rather than somebody who there's clouds out and all they're talking about is that it's raining. Like I'm an energy person, so I like having other high energy people around me. Yep. I think going back to some of the other things that I said, it's like figure out how to be a generalist, especially early on. Mm-hmm. Like, here's all the jobs and I'm going to explore all of them. I may be better at some than others, but just take interest to things. And I think that goes a long way. But I mean, building a team in general, this is the hardest part about being an entrepreneur. It's the ideas and the concepts and building technology. All of that like is zero sum, unless you have the people to operate these things and the people to, again, that energy and push the vision forward.
How about finding the co-founders and your sort of business soulmates?
Finding co-founders. That goes to trust, right? I think, most early stage businesses are usually started with friends. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I can say that after I've had periods of time where I've hired a lot of close friends. They're not close friends anymore. I've literally fired relatives. But I think early on, if we're talking about being an entrepreneur and starting a business and trying to find a co-founder, find somebody who complements your skill set. Find somebody who you want to, this is like getting married. Yeah. Find somebody who, when you spend 2-3 days with them, by the end of it, you're not sick of them and can't wait for them to leave. That was always a grade school thing for me. Somebody's coming over for a sleepover, and by the end of it, it's awesome. See you later. Just finding somebody, knowing that you're going to spend more waking hours with your co-founder or your co-founders than you are your own family, especially early on. So I think you can't overlook the idea of being around people that you enjoy. And then, this idea of learning, surround yourself with people who have a high level of ambition for themselves, because that'll drive you. It's the super cliche thing. You're only as good as the weakest link or the kind of the lowest person in your circle. That can't be more true. And I think like if you start operating in that manner, you'll see like the effective output of that.
Yeah. Amy asked about compensation structure for artists. I think we already talked that through a little, right? That it's the split on the fee,
Yep.
the $200.
Yeah. So when we were trying to like come up with the pricing model of this main core product that we've been selling for a long time, I think there were a lot of things to solve in it, right? We need to create something that is accessible enough to be big market and to be able to hit enough people. So then as you start like diving in and saying like these tentpole holidays, what are average gift sizes and things like that. But the price needs to be high enough to be able to properly compensate an artist for their time. And I think that's something that we kind of struggle with through the first process of like, man, $100 to create a song. Like we would go into our world of like, oh, when we create a single, like we're at it for a long period of time. But like, then you start to look into like how much artists are actually earning on things. You start to look at, hey, the majority of artists are spending tons of money creating their records and they're not getting anything back. They're not getting feedback back. They're not getting any kind of compensation back. Like it's just kind of empty to kind of empty years, right? So, building this idea of like, what if Songfinch, from the creator side of the platform, at least early on, what if it could be a substitute for the other things that you do as an artist to keep money in your pocket? What if it could be Uber and Lyft? Like when you drive at $15, $20 an hour, you're probably making. So paying $100 plus a portion of add-ons and gratuity, so let's say $125, $140, like paying that and starting to see that artists can create songs at the expected level in 3-4 hours, then those things started to make sense. And then, artists begin to master those things and they begin to know like, oh, here's the things that I can do with these stories to get these reactions. And like, just like anything, you get better at it, right? And when you get better at it, the time it takes and the energy it takes is less and less. So you can turn it into this world in which, again, making $20,000 in a month or $30,000 in a month, I've even seen, like that's 10 songs a day at times. So there's ways to kind of flex on the model to have it really make sense.
I think Alex, maybe if I'm remembering that right, it scrolled off, but Alex asked a question about interesting themes in song requests, and I think you said last night it was 300,000?
350,000? Yeah.
So crap ton of data in there. What are you learning?
What are we learning? All right, I'm going to disappoint some of you. I am learning that there's like 10 love stories and you fit into one of them. Like, yeah, I mean, we're learning a ton, but I am learning that like people have more things in common with you and your stories than you believe. Doesn't mean that you're not original, but it definitely means that like, there's a lot of shared experience, which is positive and encouraging, right?
Well, which probably means that a lot of the songs that are being created on the platform for consumers might have legs beyond just that consumer purchase, 100%. Right? That there might be some hits that come out of this.
100%. Yeah, we have songs with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of plays on Spotify. Yeah. We have a song recently. Somebody got a song to get over a breakup. They got a song for themselves, and it was a absolute bop. Like it was crazy, and I think it's topped out at like number 48 or 49 on the media-based charts, which is commercial radio. I believe it might have tipped into Billboard. We were talking about that last night. So yeah, I think when you think about personalized music, you're automatically like, oh, this is like, my love story with my significant other, like that isn't important to anybody. It'll only resonate between us. Like that's not true. Like look at the music that the populace listens to, right? Like a Taylor Swift song, like it's a story about all of her relationships, you know? So yeah, these songs are being created in a way in which they have relevant audience outside of just the initial intention of the creation.
So maybe that's an interesting transition from the like fundamentally human and shared experience that you know, and there's only 10 maybe, to AI and what's that going to mean, the good, the bad, the ugly. You mentioned you're an optimist, I am too, and some lost sleep certainly over this stuff. So how are you thinking about it?
This is a good question, and it's something that, you know, probably takes the majority of my waking thoughts right now in regards to, you know, machine learning, where things are going, the effect on the artist community, the effect on me as a consumer outside of the music space. And yes, I always operate glass half full from a positive point of view. I think the first thing is it's like recognizing what is really taking place and what is really possible. Like this is not like the idea of like what happened with Napster was brought up. To me, this is like 100x of that. Like what is taking place is we're at stage 0 of like a complete shift, and I think there's going to be a bunch of positive from it, a bunch of negative. Everyone is going to be affected in some way or another. To me, I use this really nerdy analogy. I say that the artist community, I look at the artist community, the creator community as Tony Stark, and I look at these data sets and technology as the Iron Man suit. And when you put these two together and you do it the right way, like that's how you create superheroes. Each of them without each other, like you still have this billionaire playboy in Tony Stark and he'll be fine. So that's the artist community. Like we're gonna be good. Like just because these things are taking place doesn't mean that people aren't going to like yearn for human connection and human creation. And then on the other side, this Iron Man suit, like it's this brilliant piece of technology. And it can be a topic of conversation, but without the human piece, I'm not really sure how it's going to be powered, where it's going to go, and what it's going to do. So I think if everyone begins looking at it like that, and you begin looking at just technology as a way to enhance the experience, enhance that human experience, enhance the creative experience. I don't know, like it's similar. What I'm seeing is like it's similar to like when sampling was introduced in the mid to late '80s, like within hip hop. Like you had an entire music industry saying like, "Oh, this is theft. This is bullshit. Like there's no talent here. Nothing's going to be created." And then like you fast forward 40 years later, and like some of like the greatest pieces of art like leveraged and utilized like these ideas that were created in the past, and they were reimagined in different ways. I think a lot of the generative stuff that's taking place is going to create noise. We don't even need to go into the legal point of this and like what's going to happen there. Everyone has their own opinions on how that's going to shake out, and we're going to have to wait. But like, I think the simple prompt to create a song is going to create a bunch of noise, and it's going to create a lot of bad music and things that feel like they don't have soul, and they'll get better over time, but it's still going to be relatively hollow. But then there's going to be really creative, innovative minds that are going to take these tools and like turn them into new pieces of art. And you're going to look at these tools and say like, hey, I have this finite resource of time, and I'm going to leverage this technology and expand that time. How can I use these tools to get 48 hours out of a day instead of 24, like metaphorically, right? So, you know, I think we're at this really awesome time. I think everyone should be open to these concepts and embrace the ideas, don't be the person that completely closes yourself off and say, the technology and AI, this isn't for me, this is fake. I think you need to understand like what's behind it, educate yourself within the process. Again, being at this really early time, right? There's no experts really. Like there's these incredible machine learning engineers, but what I'm seeing right now is like the technology isn't going to be the differentiator. Like you put like 2 or 3 really smart engineers in a room and give them a week or two, and they're like creating things that are incredible. So technology is not going to be that differentiator. It's going to be context and how these things are used, how they're leveraged, and how they're utilized. That is going to, like, to me, be the true differentiators and what creates kind of the next wave.
Yeah, 100%. So Tyler Durden, and please God, I hope that's your real name, asks, how do you make time for yourself to work on non-work passions?
Say that one more time.
How do you make time for yourself to work on non-work passions?
I have two daughters, 11 and 8. So I think, just being in their presence makes you be like, we need to carve out time. We need to figure out how to make this go. One of them, the 8-year-old, is absolutely obsessed with this business.
Yeah.
So that helps. I don't know, like, just don't make excuses, Figure out how it's done. Also, like, having a family that understands that, like, this is who I am, I'm a builder, I'm a creator, this is what moves me, this is motivating to me. It's not work. This is like, who I am and what I do. So I think having that is unbelievably important.
Great question from Hala. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Also, what would you tell someone who is very passionate about entrepreneurship, but just doesn't have a solid idea to start building on yet?
That should be an easy question to answer in regards to what's the best piece of advice. I'm not sure. I'm gonna come back to that one.
Okay.
In regards to like advice to give if you don't have an idea, I think that's just being like having the curious switch always on, and like digging and searching, and at some point you're going to you'll find inspiration, or you'll find something that you believe worthy enough to go in on. And if not, like here's the other thing that no one told me at the beginning, and maybe I wish they did. Maybe I would have done some things different. I'm not sure, but like you don't have to always be the number one. Like you can be an entrepreneur, like at the center and in your heart, and like you can attach to somebody else's idea. Like the same way that we're asking in this room, like what do you look for in a co-founder? Like there's your neighbors asking that same thing. So I think, finding something that resonates with you, whether you come up with the concept or somebody else comes up with the concept and they invite you in, just stay curious and keep an open mind. And again, like leverage your environment, like as artists in the mentor sessions, again, I had artists asking like, I put out a record and I'm not getting enough traction. And I'm like, cool, this is everyone's problem. So like start banding together resources. Start having conversations with every single other artist that has these same issues. Figure out, you come from this city, you come from this city, let's trade shows. Let's do all of these things to kind of band together resources.
That's awesome. Thanks, John. So looking at the clock, that's our time. John, thanks so much. Thanks, everybody, for asking great questions.
Thank you.
For those of you who want to continue the conversation after the next session, we're going to be getting together again at 4:45 in a more intimate setting where we can talk. You can ask questions of John. You'll be able to share some stuff.
Yeah, I think I only have like 10 people.
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, come see me. I'll make it worthwhile. Let's have a good conversation.
Thanks, John.